Jewish state is now gearing up for a potential multi-front war. Days after devastating onslaught from Gaza's Hamas regime, over 1,200 Israelis have been killed in the Hamas attacks so far. On the other hand, 900 have been reported killed in Gaza, which has also come under intense bombing from Israel's retaliatory airstrikes. Israel has also reported finding bodies of some 1,500 Hamas militants who infiltrated the Israeli territory on October 7th. In the latest, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has declared that a full-blown ground offensive in Gaza is in the offing. He said that Israel started the offensive from the air, which will be followed by a ground assault. Well, he was speaking to Israeli troops near the Gaza fence, where the Israeli forces say that some 300,000 soldiers have been deployed. As we speak, Israel is continuously pounding what it claims to be Hamas hideouts in the densely populated Gaza Strip. Over 2,300 such airstrikes have been carried out so far. The Gazan authorities have just informed that 30 people were killed in these Israeli strikes overnight. Hamas has also confirmed the death of some of its top commanders in these Israeli attacks. But the militant group has nonetheless threatened to begin executing hostages, that is, if Israel continues to strike civilian households without any prior warning. Hamas is holding around 150 hostages. These include Israeli and foreign nationals. And amid the relentless Israeli bombing on Gaza, Hamas carried out fresh rocket attacks on southern Israel. Israeli security forces have residents in Ashkelon, and they've asked them to move out to safe areas, and this after reports of more militants crossing from Gaza following the rocket fire. Well, the civilians in Gaza, on the other hand, are scrambling to flee the narrow strip of land, which has now been blockaded completely by Israel. Egypt, on its part, is moving to contain the mass exodus of Gazans into its soil. Egypt's military had taken up new positions close to the border between Egypt and Gaza and was running patrols to monitor the area. Israeli bombings have already halted crossings at the only exit point from the Palestinian enclave. Israeli security forces ordered a total siege on Gaza late on Monday, cutting off essential supplies like food, water and electricity for thousands. The United Nations has called the siege of Gaza a violation of international law. The European nations have also advised Israel against the same. Well, Israel has called up at least 300,000 reservists and massed tanks and other heavy armor, both near Gaza and on the northern border with Lebanon and Syria. This as it endures multiple attacks. After 4 days of clashes with the militants on the northern border with Lebanon, Israel reported munitions fired from Syria in the Golan Heights area, which its forces countered with retaliatory fire. Amid the fresh attacks and counterattacks, the Israeli forces have confirmed the arrival of the first tranche of advanced ammunition from the United States of America. Well, the U.S. aid arrived in Israel as U.S. President Joe Biden called the attacks by Hamas an act of sheer evil. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is also set to visit Israel on Thursday to meet with senior Israeli leaders in a show of support for Israel. And at least 14 Americans have been killed so far in Israel, with an unspecified number of Americans missing or being held hostage.
Is their own determination, their own commitment, their own conviction.
And for more on the situation, we are now being joined by Caroline Glick, a former foreign policy advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Welcome to the show, Ms. Glick.
Thank you very much for having me, Rahesh.
Right, Ms. Glick, these are unprecedented times. It is day 5 of the war in Israel. Around 1,200 Israelis have been killed in the Hamas attacks, and you're joining us live from Jerusalem. Shed some light on what is the on-ground situation like.
Well, I think you described it well in your news roundup in terms of the intensity of the campaign now taking place in Gaza, because I think what we saw with Hamas's invasion of Israel on Saturday and the abject slaughter, the Nazi-like slaughter that we suffered on Saturday, makes it very clear that the experiment that we've undergone over these past several years since Hamas seized control of Gaza in 2007 of trying to coexist with a jihadist regime run by terrorists on your border has failed, and that the only way that Israel can be safe is if the Hamas terror regime in Gaza is obliterated. And so what you're seeing now is the opening stage of an Israeli operation that's geared towards that goal, because otherwise we're simply not going to be able to be secure in our country, and we're going to see more beheadings of babies and mass rapes and murders of women and
Right.
beheadings of our citizens.
Right, Ms. Blake, the humanitarian cost of the war in Israel is extremely concerning. But earlier in the day, U.S. President Joe Biden reiterated the United States of America's strong support for Israel, from military aid to critical assets. Now, I want to seek your perspective as to how will this change the complexion of Israeli attack?
I don't think it'll change the complexions. The United States and Israel have various defensive agreements regarding procurement. And part of that agreement is that has the supplies produced in the United States by American rather than Israeli military industries. So we've already suffered 5,000, 6,000. I can't even remember the latest count of missiles from Gaza, which to defend against which we jointly developed with the United States the Iron Dome missile defense system. And part of that was Israeli technology and American financing, and the deal had those missiles being produced in the United States. So obviously we need our supplies replenished. And so the American resupply, this is also true of ammunition. So American resupply is essential, but the nature of Israel's offensive is not going to be changed by it.
Right. These airstrikes are being launched from both the sides of the war. Do you expect any prospect of ceasefire anytime soon?
No.
Right. And what are the options left for Netanyahu on the table as of now? You've served as a former advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister, and the hostage situation also remains extremely precarious as of now. So what are the options on the table for Netanyahu?
I mean, the option on the table is to invade Gaza and to destroy the Hamas as an entity, both military and otherwise. Because again, I mean, Indians have suffered this so much at the hands of jihadists that have attacked you from Pakistan and in Jammu and Kashmir and in Mumbai in 2008. And you guys understand as well as anybody, the jihadist ideology is totalitarian, and it is impossible to moderate. And so that is Hamas. Hamas is a Muslim Brotherhood organization, and it is a jihadist organization whose ideology is the same as that of the Pakistani jihadist organizations and Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all of the rest of them. So this is not an organization that can be moderated, and that's why it has to be annihilated.
Absolutely. Just a follow-up to that, Ms. Glick, Israel has been pounding Hamas hideouts in the Gaza Strip with an intention to eliminate Hamas militancy once and for all, which also Netanyahu has reiterated very staunchly. The pertinent question being here that how will Israel identify Hamas from the Palestinians in such a strong offensive?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and I think for the people of the world, the good people of the world who are concerned about the welfare of Palestinian civilians really have to be demanding that Egypt not patrol the border with Sinai to prevent them from escaping to the Sinai, but rather enable it, because that is where they can seek refuge. Because the civilians are being used as human shields, as President Biden said last night, by Hamas. And everybody who wants their lives protected, and nobody has done more to protect the lives of Palestinian civilians than Israel over the years. And the way to protect them today, under the circumstances, is for Egypt to allow Palestinian civilians to escape to Sinai. And all pressure from the world community should be placed on Egypt to enable them to escape to Egypt.
Right, Ms. Glick. Thanks very much for joining us on WION and sharing your insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.